let me know if you can see this.
Yep, we're good.
Great. Can kick it off.
Perfect. So, hey guys, how's it going? I'm Marcus Peterson. Pleasure to connect with you guys. Former athlete, done a lot of things, but here at the CEO and co-founder of ProEdge Branding, and so looking forward to connecting with everybody here. And thanks for coming.
And I'm Danny. I'm part of the community team here at LinkedIn, based in London, but really excited to be here. Thanks for joining us, and happy just to share a bit more from my end as well. And glad I'm joining Marcus and Brendan, and should be a fun little workshop.
Yeah, and I'm Brendan. So, like, my specialty's always been I've started up a bunch of companies with the main focus on advertising through LinkedIn. So, ended up being the first one to start bringing professional athletes onto the platform. And excited for the session, guys.
Absolutely. Cool. So we have an icebreaker. I see Walt. So we'll kind of ask you a quick question. What's the first word that comes to mind when you think about LinkedIn?
Network.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. And Trav, when you think about LinkedIn, what's one of the first things that comes to mind?
When I think about LinkedIn, it's something that, when I go to different events, it's something that I don't have that everybody seems to have besides me. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Totally understand. Okay. And we got another one as well.
Mm.
It's a good one. I think Miss Stephanie, how about you? Which athlete, as you've been prevalent on LinkedIn, which athlete do you think has built more of a standout personal brand to your knowledge so far?
For me, I would say it's you. And that is actually how we got connected.
Yes,
It was about 4 years ago because I saw you in the feed and I teach communication classes here at USC, and I invited Marcus to come and give an athlete's perspective to a media training day we did. And so he's someone that you are someone that I think has a great standout brand because I can follow you and I know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. And then also when we talk, then I can ask questions. And that's where it really creates that sense of community. So thanks.
absolutely, absolutely. And my man Trey, if you don't mind me asking, which athlete to your knowledge has built a standout personal brand? Trey, can you hear us? I think is on mute. But Jacob, can you hear us? I will come back to Trey.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, which athlete do you think, to your best knowledge, has built a standout personal brand?
Um, I'd say Steph Curry has built a really good personal brand, and then there's so much stuff he's doing off the field that I mean the average NBA fan wouldn't even know. I didn't know until you guys brought it to my attention as well.
Absolutely. Okay, good, good, good. So just for time's sake, we'll go on to the next one. So me, I've done a lot of things, but sitting here as a CEO and co-founder of ProEdge Branding, done a lot of things from the sports aspect, financial aspect, as well as the tech aspect. Got my MBA, got my graduate degree, excuse me, my undergrad in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then also my graduate degree in global business finance in London. So a very stellar background was being able to be featured in few publications, which has been really advantageous to what I am that I'm doing now. So very diverse in what we're doing, and especially here with ProEdge Branding, is as we've all probably connected here on LinkedIn. But it's such a great ecosystem. Doesn't matter which industry you're in, and just really understanding where people are going and just kind of really cutting out the middleman. So that's pretty much sums about me. I've lived all over the world and been all over the world, so that's definitely been a blessing. And is it was it this another slide?
No, I think this is the one next.
Gotcha. So again, the premise of us, who we are, we're ProEdge Branding. We're the premier personal brand consultancy, helping athletes like yourselves, individuals that you know, like on the college side as well as the professional side, really articulate who their brand value is outside of the sport that they play. We specifically concentrate and instruct those certain athletes on how to effectively leverage and monetize their brand value, specifically while their temperature is hot. Like, Trey, when you're at Michigan and what you're doing now, Jacob, obviously, tomorrow and the weekend where we're in the Buccaneers, is just understanding being in the ecosystem and having that platform. We know, you get all those yeses, but when they turn into nos, how do we leverage those different relationships? And just our mission, as a whole for our team is really the long-term success. Because, we're not going to play for the Los Angeles Lakers forever, but what do we do with those different relationships and the knowledge and the understanding that we're able to do while we were playing, and connecting with those certain key decision makers, executives, brand deals. Especially here, we have with Refranch on the franchise side, a stellar professor at USC. So you just never know who you might meet, but the connections and whether you want to go into real estate, interior design, consulting. It's really a great platform for athletes having that platform. And again, about me, played, small stints with Jacksonville and then also the LA Chargers. Then got into the financial aspect became a director of sports entertainment sector for a VP and a VP, excuse me, of an IRA firm, which is a registered investment advisory in Santa Monica, California, then moved to Boca Raton in South Florida. So more of the venture capital, private equity, private credit side, and then I understood kind of where tech was going, so took a leap of faith and I actually transitioned to technology and did an apprenticeship for both Microsoft and Google, and just understood, as you know, Travis, a treasurer for the NFLPA for the LA chapter. So just understanding where the digital marketing was going and where sports media was going, definitely want to transition into help athletes understand their platform and how to monetize it as much as possible. So which led us here to ProEdge Branding.
And then, yeah, so my background I'm a co-founder of ProEdge Branding and pretty much like a techie. So, over the years, have developed formulas that work when it comes to like working with athletes, getting them connected with the right people, and really helping them take off when it comes to different business endeavors. And then this is similar, kind of just like the journey going from coming out of college, jumping into entrepreneurship, and ending up working with a bunch of athletes all across the world.
Yeah, so the role of personal branding in business is so key. As you know, you look at individuals like Drewski, he's all over the place because he has such a stellar personal brand. Jacob, as you were saying, Steph Curry, a lot of different individuals, having such a stellar personal brand can take you to that next level. What does that really mean? Personal branding is how you're viewed on your perception of the world. Like your parents might think you're this, but what does the market think of you? And that's what personal brand truly is. And like when it comes to investors and executives and companies that want to connect and work with you, how are you viewed? And a lot of times when you look at even in the music industry, if you have a hot song, that's when you gravitate to get more of those brand deals, is because your temperature is hot. Same thing, Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, their temperature is hot. So that's when they get more of those brand deals. But how to monetize that while your temperature is hot? When we say your temperature is hot, meaning why you're playing in the NBA, why you're playing in the WNBA, why you're playing in the NFL, why you're playing overseas, why you're playing softball, really getting that platform and that magnitude of who it is that you are, because it's going to cool off. But getting as much as possible while your temperature is hot can really last you long term. As you look at individuals like Shaq, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, they make more, Magic Johnson, they make more money, David Beckham, they make more money off the field. And why is that? Their main premise is, whatever sport that they play, but the different relationships they were able to make while they were playing to go into those certain businesses, still at their knowledge to take them to that next level. And then really just, enables a seamless transition because, sometimes as sports players, as we know, like you can play sports forever, that's our expertise. But if we want to go into consulting or to real estate or whatever it is we may be, that we have to go into entry level. So how do we make those connections to, as we always say, as some of you guys know, it's not necessarily what you know or who you know, but who knows you. So it helps with the seamless transition into the career paths. And then just building the right brand today can really set the stage for future success as we're all learning. Because if you're playing sports in your 20s and your 30s and your teens, you really don't know too much of who you are. You just really throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And that's what a stellar personal brand really does. And as you build the authenticity of who you are and articulate that to a certain audience, that can propel you to that next level. Some more of the aspect connecting, and identifying on the business, as you know, Jim, as we speak about it, doing a lot of things in the business aspect. This is a question for you, or just more questions for anybody. But let me do this one for Jacob really quick, and Jim, I'll come next to you. Jacob, like, what do you want to be known for outside of the sport? Obviously, we know, but if you can, in this frame or this
Yeah.
form.
I guess outside of my sport, I want to be known as, I guess, a pillar of my community, where I came from. And also someone who isn't defined by my sport, but has also found success outside of my sport. I think that's important for athletes in general. And for me personally, I think it's important to continue striving for success off the field and understanding that, yes, I'm an athlete now, but it doesn't define me as a whole. And there's a lot more ventures and opportunities and passions that I have outside the game of football.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And Jim, my man, like which areas in business or investing, obviously you have a very stellar background of what you're able to do, but if you can articulate kind of like what areas in business or investing that interest you at the current moment.
Well, so for me now it's more for the investing side of things for the long term. Uh, Only because trying to get your business up and running and the focus is more on that early on, which it should have been role reversal, but old school thought was, you know what I mean, work, 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 work. And then now it's like trying to like catch up with the investing part. So now more is more investing for the future. So even with me, even though like I work with athletes, I take care of athletes, my longevity is only so long as well. So more in the investing in the future, and plus for your families, for everything long term. For the mindset of the old school was like the short term. So now it's like, all right, so now I have the short term figured out. Now it's just more the long term investing and branding things so that way for the future of and for everybody involved, it'll be a greater place, you know.
Absolutely. Totally understand. Totally understand. And Trey, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
Perfect. So you personally, I know outside of maybe just basketball, or you can include basketball, for you, what are like some short-term and long-term goals for yourself?
Yeah, so some short-term goals, is essentially building, my main foundation of, income and building out streams of that, and obviously, tying that into my branding and seeing different opportunities I have with that, and some long-term goals. I would say is starting up my own consulting firm and establishing myself as a you know, reputable source.
Totally understand. That's awesome. And actually, Miriam, I kind of actually want to ask you that same question, if you don't mind me asking. I know what you're doing on, the business aspect, but on the personal aspect, what are like some short-term and midterm goals for yourself?
Oh, interesting. Oof, they're so like intertwined with the work that we do at We French that it's like hard to tell. But we're hosting this national tour with Chick-fil-A. So it's like an event series around the country that connects a lot of, athletes, just like people that are working in the corporate world with kind of like top franchise opportunities. So, that's just what I do all day long. So I think making this event successful. Actually, thank you so much to you, Marcus. You introduced us to Spencer Jones from the Denver Nuggets team. He's going to be one of the judges at the event. So
Yeah.
kind of helping facilitate the conversation between the franchisors and franchisees. So yeah, we're headed to Denver next week if anyone is in town. And then we still have LA, Seattle, and Portland left in case you guys are in those cities.
Yes, please connect. And of course, obviously that we've been speaking about that, but for Stephanie and I, when we go, well, Stephanie's in LA, but definitely like to keep connected on that aspect as well. Tommy, how are you?
I'm doing great. I apologize being late. I just wanted to poke in and see what everybody was up to, but I've been on a call with a client that when they're paying you, you got to listen. So I was listening and here.
I like them when they're paying you, got to listen. Totally understand. Well, we're just going in more to, thanks so much for everybody involved in that. Ashley, I'll ask you the next question too. But just for an example of me, like, understanding. So, like, as some of you know, like, I went backwards. Like, as Jim, you're saying, I did it the reverse way. Like, I got my MBA in global business finance first. I traveled the world. I did my dissertation. I understood brand marketing, sales, and different aspects before I went to the NFL, which was definitely a blessing in disguise. So obviously playing in Jacksonville for a small stint, but then going to the LA market, I knew, okay, this ecosystem was so much used in whether if I go play for like Green Bay or Buffalo or something like that. So how can I take advantage of this? So like if we have practice on Tuesdays, like for practice squad, individuals like me, you practice like maybe 2 or 3 times a week. But like, what am I doing Wednesday morning? What am I doing Wednesday night? What am I doing Saturday? What am I doing Sunday if we're in Houston? So really ostracizing having that Chargers jersey on. And that Jacob, as you know, Trey, as you know, Travis, especially like, playing with, the top elite athletes of all time, like when you're in Arizona or Buffalo or whatever, is everybody gives you all these yeses, but it's like, okay, what do I do with those yeses? You know what I mean? So that's how athletes really should understand how to really monetize and not take it as Jacob, we speak about it too. And as individuals, we speak, it's like sometimes, yes, it does seem like they're just using athletes just because of your platform, but switching the energy from like, oh man, I used to get all these no's, but switching it to like, they only want to speak to me just because I have that. Okay, that's fine. But now let me get something out of it as well. Whether it's a learning aspect, whether it's a deal flow, whether it's connections, it's something you can get out of that, just not having that kind of dauntingness around that. So, and then as Brendan, as you know, and I thank you so much for this, about, what was it, 23% of my income came from LinkedIn in 2020. So that's just off of relationships, brand deals, and me understanding how to strategically work. And 23% is a lot. Not saying that it was a lot, but 23%, regardless of what the pie is, it's a lot outside of the sport that we're playing. So really understanding how to be an athlete and get into, like, to Trey, you want to go into the consulting space. Like, the ecosystem at the University of Michigan is huge, but how do you position yourself to not only just be, okay, yes, an athlete, but what problems do you solve? That's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, you can have a 5-minute conversation of, okay, yeah, you play basketball, NBA, G League, Michigan, but okay, now how do I stay in the room? And that's the biggest thing. You can get into the room, how do I stay into the room? So that's one of the biggest things for sure. And then pretty quickly, so as we know, Travis, and you know him personally, like on Odell Beckham, he's been using LinkedIn the last few years. Obviously, he was the hottest athlete on the planet a couple of years ago, and he still has that brand value, but understanding building himself to, be such a stellar athlete, but also on the business aspect side, as he launched a couple of things, but just understanding he can kind of connect. As some of you know, who went to the Super Bowl, he brought Tim Cook to New Orleans. And that's huge, the CEO of Apple. And that's just, as an athlete, having that relationship is pretty huge. And athletes and actually, as you know, are starting to use LinkedIn more, but how to really use it, almost 400% since COVID, athletes are starting to use that platform. It really cuts out the middleman rather than like a TikTok or Instagram. So the professional branding aspect of it is like, especially with college athletes, Trey, as being like when you're at the University of Michigan, you're almost as big as, somebody on the Patriots. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the college and Stephanie, as you know, being at USC has the same pillars almost being on the Lakers. So how are you able to use that? You're only going to be in sports for like 2 to 4 years, but how can you leverage that aspect? And then building such a diverse network, Jim, as you know, in the investing side, the C-suite executives and the brand executives and the sports agents, people are able to connect with, how to sustain those different relationships and the access to corporate sponsorships. Jacob, as we've been speaking about, is, wanting to go into real estate, automobile, franchises, but how to not only learn the corporate aspect, because it's all a game, whether it's football, basketball, being a dentist, corporate life is all a game. It's all about partnerships and relationships, but how to really increase your visibility, having being that ambassador to put you in those different positions, and then showcasing the social impact of the values. It's like Walt, as you know, it's like showcasing, like, yeah, you might play sports, but you have a huge stand on whether it's political or whatever it might be, having that backbone in that aspect. And then the long term career uh, development, like myself, even Trav, like, you played sports, but now what? Like, time moves on. You get a little older. You're not going to play forever. So, what are you able to do with that and those different relationships, and also the knowledge of the name, image, and likeness to get you into those certain platforms? And then just setting yourself on the foundation to the long term success. Because as we said earlier, it's like you're not going to play forever, but what are you able to do with what you've learned in those to transition you to what you think you should be doing in the future?
Um, Great. Now I can share a bit from my world, from LinkedIn, and just before sharing a few more practical tips and best practices, I always like to start sharing some context from how I see things on LinkedIn. I've been here for 4 years, supporting different companies, executives, different experts, creators, but also athletes. It's not my official capacity, but since I joined, I felt the potential to start bringing some sports personalities, athletes, and just having more sports conversation on the platform. I remember at the beginning having a really hard time getting LinkedIn to get buy-in, but also even with some athletes, when I told them to join, they were really kind of laughing at us in a way, not personally, but yeah, LinkedIn was not a thing. They didn't see the value of being present on LinkedIn. They didn't get the point. And now we're seeing that changing. A lot of big names and athletes and sports figures really coming to LinkedIn and again, really finding the purpose. And I think it's really what everything that Marcus said. LinkedIn is the platform to build your brand, to position yourself as much more than just sports. I think we are all much more than just professionals. We have hobbies, we have families, we have different causes we support, and we have aspirations, right? So LinkedIn is a platform to showcase this. And yeah, not because I work here, I'm a bit biased, but nobody can neglect LinkedIn anymore. It's the most trusted platform, and it's where the opportunities are coming. And we love to share a bit more, hopefully to convince you or to motivate you to either launch a profile if you haven't, or to, if yes, to be a bit more active and put yourselves out there. Because I've really seen it with the people I support, but also with myself, the doors, the connections, the conversations that really open up. And I would say LinkedIn is less about numbers for the sake of numbers. It's less about having 1 million followers, which you can, but it's not the point. It's really much more about the people you're reaching, the people you're talking with, the decision makers, the the people who are leading industries, and yeah, it's a really positive platform in that sense. Um, so yeah, not a huge, I would say, focus of today, but I always like to give a few pointers on how can you polish your profile in a good way. There's not much to a profile. It's not really rocket science, but I think most of you already have this in place. But if not, make sure you have what I call the basics, right? Meaning a good profile picture, a good cover image. They don't need to be the most serious. LinkedIn is not anymore the most serious, boring place. Be you, be authentic, make sure the quality is there, the colors are there. I sometimes go to profiles, and even if it's a big sports athlete or a CEO and there's no images, you kind of neglect it in a way. So make sure you have that in place, that your headline, your summary is really, there. It's a really important piece of real estate. I chose this example of Andy Murray, which I support in a way, which in paper looks very bland and very, short. But I think that's him, is his personality, his brand, and so he's leaning into that. I play tennis, but of course, like what I mean, be you, be authentic, don't be generic, don't talk in third person, um, which maybe was the case here. I think me was at some point my about section was I support CEOs during the day and change diapers during the night. because when I had wrote that, I had just become a dad, which was the truth. It was me. I was proud of, and I think being a dad is very much my identity connected with work. So just to convey the importance of having good profile, but which is a good segue to what's coming. That's not the most important thing on LinkedIn, and I think that's a misconception that the success of LinkedIn is based only on your profile. That's a part of it, but most people won't go directly to your profile. They'll find you with what you are doing in the ecosystem as a whole, which is what I'm gonna hopefully add some value. But yeah, I think the profile versus resume, the classic CV, very outdated. Of course, it's important, but it's a very static. It doesn't really show your personality. Whereas a profile, which shares similarities with a resume, it's something that has life, that it's much more dynamic, that you can play with, that again you can showcase much more. I'm seeing now that content and sharing ideas and showing yourself out there and putting yourself out there, it's really the new resume in that sense. I see a lot of young professionals, students getting hired or approached by recruiters based on what they're saying, what they're sharing, what they're doing on the platform. It's really hard to stand out now with only a CV. We've all seen that it's a tough market, very crowded. So you want to make sure you have that visibility, that credibility, and that you are top of mind. So I think LinkedIn is really key regarding that. Some best practices, which by the way, I think most people still have a hard time sharing content on LinkedIn, putting yourself out there. I've been it through myself, and even with all of the people I support. I think the mindset is a big part of it. LinkedIn can be a bit frightening, a bit cringy. I've seen the memes, I like them. But yeah, it's more connected to your profession. We are a bit more, let's say, concerned to what people will think, but I think that's changing. So hopefully this will help you also go over that line. This slide, it's a bit, I would say, silly, but I really like it. It really conveys the difference between LinkedIn and other platforms, and I think you get the idea. And this applies to any topic, any industry, not only shoes. Um, and I think it's really what we want to make LinkedIn is the platform to share something of value, insights, knowledge, and not just sharing for the sake of sharing. It's less about quantity, it's about quality, and really about positioning. I think that's the key word. Yourself as an expert in whatever domain you are, as an athlete, as an investor, as a board member, as a student, as any type of profession, as any type of hobby, any niche. That's what you want to be seen as on LinkedIn. In terms of kind of big picture, a bit, vague, but I think this helps. Be consistent. That doesn't mean you need to post every day or you need to post 3 times a week. This is just a best practice, but in my eyes, it's more about trying to build that habit, trying to dedicate some time and commitment and resources. It does require some level of commitment, but even if you dedicate 30 minutes a week, block it in your calendars and make sure you make a post. Force yourself, put a constraint. Don't overthink it. That's something I've learned the hard way. There's not a perfect post, there's not a perfect idea. It's more about showing off, showing up, and sharing again, your knowledge. And more than anything, what works for you, right? So if you've never posted and you start posting once a month, that's I think already a huge win for you. So I think try just to improve your own journey. Give context. I think that's my biggest takeaway. I'll give an example, which we've all seen or which we've all might done at some point. The classic LinkedIn post. I attended this event with a picture. Thanks for having me. Which I think it's okay on itself, but it doesn't really add much value. Let's say Marcus does a post about an event, and I don't know Marcus, and I see that post, and I don't really engage. It doesn't really tell me anything. But even just a step further, as I've said, with a mindset where Marcus can share this is what he learned during the event or the conference. This is something, a new technology he saw, or even maybe more. This is how Marcus prepared beforehand to network with other peers. This is how Marcus prepared to give a keynote speech. Some, again, gems, some insight, something that's non-obvious might help me as an outsider relate, connect, engage, and that's how I guess things compound. So not every post has to be the most substantial. Again, not every post has to be, the most deep, but this is the type of mindset you want to bring into the platform. And it's not complicated. Be reactive, also a very good tip that it took me a while to understand. a question I get a lot is like, Danny, how can I post more? I don't have ideas. And I think that's fair. But you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to come up with the most original concepts about your industries or about your worlds. That's hard. You can just talk about something that's happening in the news, in the industry, in the MBA, in college, in tech, in AI, and hijack the news and ultimately just give your unique take on those news, on those things that are happening, on those moments, on those events, on something that you're reading. With this kind of framework, you're going to be able to come up with much more ideas and you're going to start connecting the dots. And ultimately, people are following, I don't know, Brendan, because he's adding his unique spin on things. And I think that's really the key on LinkedIn. That's how you build trust, affinity, and that's how you position yourself as an expert. And I think LinkedIn also it's changing. You don't need to only talk about your, I guess, your career. You can talk about your stories, your, of course, your career, your knowledge, your lessons. It's not only about, I got promoted, I got hired. Try to go a step further and again, share your learnings, your journey. People want to hear from you more than you think. Um, there's personal, you can also, it's not Facebook, less about, vacations or cat memes. But again, I think the personal and the professional are very much connected. So make sure you lean into that as well. Quickly as well on how can you make a good post? How can you make a post, I guess, shine? I would like to say that there's no secret formula. People think we have like a button that you can, make a post go viral. I wish that was the case, but I always like to give also some pointers. One is make sure you try to come up with a good what we call a hook or a scroll stopper. Like anything, there's so much noise, so much content. We are really, going crazy in our day-to-days. You want to catch people's attention, maybe with a good strong first line, a question, a stat, something that's maybe non-obvious, something that again really allows people to stop and even consider reading your post or watching a video. Super important. As mentioned, go on to add some unique takeaway. Try to leave some sort of insight and value. That's really my biggest takeaway. And always best practice, try to invite people to the conversation. A lot of the magic in LinkedIn happens in the comments. I've seen it myself. And a pro tip for all of you who wanna start on LinkedIn and are having a hard time, start with comments. Leave comments on my post, on Brendan's post, on Marcus' post. Try to start building that habit, removing that friction, and of course, try to leave a comment that it's valuable in itself. Besides, I agree or great post. Give your take. Maybe disagree with a post. Add an additional idea. I say comments are content on themselves, so it's just about again starting to build that friction and even the best recipe for those of you who wanna start seriously 30 minutes a day. Try to create a post, try to leave 10 comments, and send 5 connections to people in the industry. You're going to see things compounding. Yeah, and who's leading the way? 4 years ago, I would have a hard time showing these great examples. Now, I think, again, thankfully, there's so much more happening, as you can see here, not only some of the biggest names, but across different backgrounds, different sports, not to mention all of the great names we work here in Europe. But again, the big names are leading the way, and you can see kind of the snowball effect. So, really, really good to see. And I don't know, Marcos, if you want to chime in here.
Yeah, I was gonna say to your point, what I love about this, and we spoke about this with some of the individuals here on the call, but the biggest thing we see here is out of what, one, two, three, four, 15, you see only one jersey, right? And these are all athletes. You see Odell Beckham, you see Alex, you see Steph, Tim, Chris. None of them, I mean, you see Kelly Oubre, he probably has a different one, but none of them have what they do on the court or on the field. They showcase who they are outside. Like if you look at Kevin Durant, he's a small forward for the Houston Rockets, but partner and co-founder of 35V and Boardroom. Alex Rodriguez, chairman and CEO XYZ. It just shows so much of what they're doing outside of the aspect. Obviously, more of the stellar athletes, they know what you do, but what are you doing outside of that? Because all these players are not going to be playing forever. So how are they going to be able to like Alex Morgan, professional footballer, yes, and founder of Together, and it's going to show more of what it is that she does and her team does for Together. So this is a really good example. You see, some of these are a lot of them are top voices as well. And Danny, I know if you want to touch on the top voice and how it like amplifies more of your profile, but Stevens. It just really goes to show like it's not necessarily what you're just doing on the court of the field, but really connecting with those individuals to buy into the off the field endeavors that will take you long term. Alex Rodriguez is probably the most wealthiest one on this page, and it's because Tony Gonzalez, because of what they were able to do with their brand of being such a stellar in their sport. But the biggest thing is where their income came from was connections, the relationships. That's the biggest thing. And that's why LinkedIn is so much of the best to me. And Miriam, I know you can kind of agree with this as well. The best platform for that aspect. And that's what we try to do at ProEdge Branding, is helping the athletes really understand that. It's not the brand deals of what, Puma or Nike might say, here's 10 grand, but it's the individuals behind the hedge funds. It's the partners at, the big four. Like those are the relationships that take you from Alex Rodriguez Yankee to Alex Rodriguez almost going into politics. So, when you go into politics, you're making some money. So that's one of the biggest things is what's the biggest thing for athletes.
Yeah, love that. Also some posts of some of the athletes we're working with. And as Marcus just said, I think LinkedIn is a platform to talk about things related to sports that are not happening on the field. That's for the other platforms. So here you can see Mario Götze, big footballer, soccer player, for maybe you guys talking a bit more about his side of world, about the performance, how he's approaching things. Someone that I definitely recommend you to follow. He talks a lot about his investments and his ventures. Really, really exciting profile. Steph, really love what he's doing here, which was more of an article, a deeper dive on All-Star, like the milestone, and just Steph, being a bit more vulnerable, something that I doubt he will be sharing as much on other platforms. Serena as well. Of course, LinkedIn is the platform to promote businesses, your partnerships. But I think this is a really good example of not only announcing a partnership, but how it came about and a bit more color and nuance, which is, I think, what we always recommend. And I think Serena, from what I heard, is really hands-on and pretty much involved on LinkedIn, whereas in other platforms, not as much. And now maybe I'll pass it to Marcus for some case studies.
Yeah, some of you have seen this, but this is a big thing. It's this individual played in the NBA, got drafted from the Sacramento Kings. But with being, and again, this goes back to market, playing in the Silicon Valley, which the Golden State Warriors are located, played for the Trailblazers and the Kings, as I said. But when this is when Steph Curry was starting to launch, so a lot of people in that area loved the Golden State Warriors. This was like right after Monte Ellis and everyone else. But through a connection he was able to make with one of the key suite I think execs or partners with the Golden State Warriors. He's able to secure a $500,000 sponsorship deal because he got hurt, but he knew like basketball wasn't going to be forever. So his endeavors was, yes, he played basketball, but he loved clothing and fashion. So created a multi-million-dollar clothing brand and then articulated that and just kind of like transitioned that to more of the minority community of active Black. But that just goes to show those relationships too, because you can't go into a bank and get a $500,000 sponsorship deal or with just of who your name is. So that's why relationships are so big and so key. And the relationship he was able to get from LinkedIn. So like Trey, when we're talking about consulting and connecting with certain those individuals, is how do you position to do that? Nobody's just handing out $500,000 just because you play basketball. Their son likes it. It's how you get into those rooms and then solve those problems. So that's one of the biggest things. And then years later, he was featured in Forbes, which, Active Black, which was Active Faith at first, but now Active Black expanded to a brand and donating and going into the communities. So this is really a great example of how big networking and connections it is with LinkedIn. And to Danny's point, as we were saying earlier, creating the engagement content of how you're able to pinpoint those certain things are really key.
Yeah, and this is someone that we've done work with, and this really kind of showed me just the power of LinkedIn and like what you can do from it. Like being able to we have the Sickle Cell Awareness Foundation, and through LinkedIn we were able to raise $550,000 just and it's going to like the site, setting up the whole website, and through LinkedIn, just driving the traffic there. It was eye-opening to see that like a lot of people wanted to contribute to a cause that they resonated with.
And yeah, I guess we've seen our members really engaging with sports much more. Not only the fact that, people think LinkedIn sports is not a thing because there's no highlights. That's definitely not the case. Sports is becoming more and more important. So you guys are in a very good position to stand out. Um, People are watching sports, people are playing sports. Maybe not at the most elite level, but sports is everyone's favorite hobby. Not to mention all of the content and entertainment that they're consuming. Uh, but more than anything for me is the conversations that are happening around sports, which was not the case. Wimbledon a few weeks ago, I saw so much content around topics that are adjacent to the actual tennis game, right? The marketing, the branding, the tech, the financial. So it's really interesting to see those are the type of conversations happening on the platform. And if you guys are talking about those topics, you are insiders. You're pretty much experts. So people want to hear from you. You're in a very unique position to tell these stories. So it's a really interesting shift.
Yeah, and then this is a big thing too. It's going back to I can't emphasize this enough. It's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. I know some of the individuals here know Matt Higgins sits on the board of Shark Tank as well as the Harvard Business School and then chairman for the Dolphins. This goes back to what Danny was saying: content creation, content creation, content creation. Whether that's commenting, liking, and putting that engagement out there, reaching out because like what I was doing on the engagement side and the marketing and LinkedIn. So it's not, you never know who's watching. That's the biggest thing when we think about LinkedIn. It's like Danny said too, it's don't be shy to promote yourself and put yourself out there on what's going on because you never know who's watching. You never know who needs to hear what you're hearing. You never know who's engaging with what you're engaging in. Whether you're getting one like, one comment, 1,000 likes, 1,000 comments, you never know who that one like can be. So this is like, and as we know now, coming from a tech side, by 2030, as we spoke about this too, it's either having a stellar personal brand, mid-market into tech, or some type of like trade. Everything else where generative AI is going, Travis, we talk about this all the time. It's coming down to a lot of the soft skill and the high expertise in what you're able to do within the tech sector or having a brand. It's nothing we can really do about it. It's just it's the individuals who know about it and who how can they scale with that, and the individuals who don't, they'll learn how to sink or swim. So understanding having such a stellar personal brand is not necessarily, it's not even key anymore. It's a must. So that's why whether you're an athlete, you're working with athletes, you're working with investments, you have to separate yourself. It's like, Walt or Trey, like if you might be whatever position you are, but there's 5 centers, there's 5 point guards. Only one can get in the game. What's the difference between you and the other 5 or you and the other 3? But that same thing here on the digital world is like, what's the difference between you and other athletes? There's a million receivers, there's a million quarterbacks. But how do you set yourself in the corporate space to be amplified in that aspect? So that's why I think this is key. You never know who's watching. So put yourself out there. And to Danny's point too, not all the time because you don't want to make it seem too much, but it's in this game is more quality over quantity. So then we have this as well. Nick and other individuals, thanks so much for joining here. Nick, can you hear us?
Yep, I just don't have video capability on this
No worries.
computer.
No worries. Thanks so much. She's in the Tennessee area working with those individuals that call it. So thanks so much for coming here. So this is, I think, Trey, you've seen this, but this is more the elevator pitch. And why this is good, especially Danny being in the European market. When it comes to whatever you're trying to do, and I think, Stephanie, I definitely want to ask you this one first, because you're very articulate in this aspect. When you think about investments in branding, and Trey, this is good for you too. Netflix, we all know Netflix is a seamless streaming platform that is $1 billion industry now. But you have to concentrate, like Burberry does a really good job of stay at home individuals of certain caliber, like it pinpoints who your target market is. So like for Netflix, it's for young Americans who want demand entertainment. Who it is, Netflix is an online streaming TV service that works seamlessly. So when it comes to different presence of this, it's like for who is an that. And Stephanie, I would love to hear your expertise, especially when it comes to like the public speaking and articulating of that. Let's say for you, or like, if you can give like an example, how would you say for right here on the left, it says elevator pitch framework, like for X, Y, even it could be for you, your endeavors, or just an example. What would you say on the left that you can say in this like 15-second increment of this target market?
So I would say, um, I'm here to work with athletes who have a desire to improve their public speaking through my consulting of public speaking. And I'm looking at helping athletes improve their productivity as well as their profitability and their presence. Unlike other areas of the field, what I do is I provide special, unique training sessions that will allow people to improve their skills. So so that's how I would approach it. One thing that I would say, I like the Netflix approach better because it's much more direct. I think elevator pitches are important, yet people like I just did get tongue-tied in how they say it. And elevator pitches in the traditional format can have people feel awkward. Like when you ask that question, it's the deer in the headlights, like, how am I supposed to respond? Whereas you're talking about, to me, the Netflix focuses more on what I can give, whereas the elevator pitch is focused more on me. And I think when people are able to hear more about what I can do for you without me being in it, it helps resonate and shows more of a service approach and a value added in connecting with me. So that's what I appreciate the two different examples that you have provided. And that's why I would say that the Netflix is much more direct, succinct, and it also allows more opportunity to show the value added in connecting with me and how I can help you.
Absolutely love that. Love that. And Tommy, if you don't mind us picking on you, whether the two with the elevator pitch on the left or the right, for what is it you're doing, I think it will be a good example to give us what you would kind of say in this framework.
I look at the Netflix elevator pitch, and that's something I'm constantly stressing to players that I work with, coaches that I work with, clients that I work with, and everybody's trying to figure out who they are in the LinkedIn space after being on social media for so long.
Mhm.
It's like, how do you take your brand to the adult world in a lot of ways? And I was in the NBA for 30 years, and I'm really impressed with I think some of the mentorship people like yourself that are bringing it forward to show that it doesn't take a great deal of effort. There's much difference competing in the business world as there is in sports. It's easier to win Powerball than it is to play in the NBA, but taking that same competitive gene over to this area is great, but learning the basics is so important. And I think just getting the reps and seeing the difference that it makes for people to understand the power that LinkedIn brings is fantastic. And for me, I'm still learning myself, but that's where I'm doing a lot of executive coaching now, and that's where I've kind of started posting some things. And to Danny's point, like it blew me away how many people come to that and kind of comment on your posts and stuff, and try to find something that just really is interesting and authentic to me. And I'm not trying to be anybody else but me. I've
Absolutely.
seen a lot, I've done a lot, I've been very, very blessed and been through a lot of stuff. And I don't think I need to get super personal on there, but sometimes you throw out stuff that you notice, and I see that's what gets the most feedback.
Yes, Tommy, thanks so much for joining for sure, and thank you for that. Nick, I know, can you hear us, Nick? And
Yep.
Can you see as well?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So obviously, like we've been speaking, I think especially what you're doing in Tennessee, if you could see the one of the certain frameworks, like if you were to put for XYZ who is an, or on the other side of who is, what would you kind of say in this aspect, especially with the endeavors that Tennessee is doing, or even for yourself?
Yeah. I just went off the screen. Can you reshare that?
Yes. Can we
Sorry, 1 second. It kicked me
Cool.
away. Can you see it now?
Yep. I think honestly, kind of to piggyback a little bit off of the last gentleman, Tommy, who was speaking, I'd say that the Netflix framework. Um, I think, for the our players here at Tennessee at least, we definitely try to help and emphasize the fact that, obviously you're playing at a large program, you're playing football at a highly competitive institution. But also just, everybody kind of has different things that add unique value and kind of make you different and unique for who you are. So I think we try to really hone in on that and help them focus on that, especially when they do have these networking opportunities or micro internship opportunities that our department is setting up for them when they're going out and engaging and things like that.
Absolutely.
And sorry for the noise in the back. They're still actively doing some construction here, finishing up before training camp starts up.
No worries at all. And Jacob, I got to call on you, my man. And Walt, I definitely want to speak to you, Travis, next. But Jacob, as we were going, for you specifically, as we've kind of been sharpening up what you're doing, I kind of want to be more the harder on you. So if we can go on, let's do the left side of the Netflix. How would you articulate, boom, who you are or what you're trying to do? And like, so like the
Yeah.
four who is, yeah. So which one of the two, like, how would you do it in that?
For the elevator framework, I would say to articulate who I am, I'm an athlete first. So I'm still playing football. That is my number one focus. Um, who I am outside of football, I'm interested in real estate. I'm interested in cars, like high performance vehicles, racing, whatever that may be. Um, I am interested in investing, finance. So to articulate that into, okay, I'm a football player first, but this is what I'm interested in as well. My market category would be obviously, okay, while my time is off the field with football, I took my real estate course in Florida to get that. Now I'm just waiting on the proper time to get my real estate license. I don't necessarily want to be a realtor, but I thought it would be advantageous to learn the behind the scenes of real estate and what goes on, as far as being a realtor in the market, selling and buying real estate. If I want to be an active investor in it in the future, I should probably know exactly what's going on rather than trusting someone else's expertise. And then one key benefit from that is I just kind of explained that. And then unlike competition, I feel like we're all competing, I guess, with everyone in the market, every athlete that's looking to transition from what they do in sport and then into the business world. What differentiates me from the athlete that's transitioning? And I would say that background, that story of what got me to where I am today, that journey that took me from a walk-on to a drafted NFL player, Super Bowl
And
champ,
Super Bowl champion.
Super Bowl champion, and just the amazing opportunities I've gotten to do. I didn't have a long stint in Jacksonville either, but I was able to experience playing overseas in London, which was huge. So I was able to partake in many ventures through the NFL, which I can carry on. So I think that story, that journey, and then those unique ventures that I was able to incorporate in that is that unique differentiator that I can articulate through LinkedIn, to separate myself from the athlete that I am.
Got you. Totally understand. That's awesome. And just as far, that was actually great, Jacob. Appreciate that. And definitely want to be cognizant, especially if Danny is out in London.
Yeah.
But definitely want to attack, Trey, Travis, Jim, and Walt. But moving forward on this one, so like that's actually great. But to button it up, it's got to be like, as we all know, and Stephanie, it's got to
Yeah.
be 15 seconds. So like, no, just like being when you're pitching like that, it's It's
Yeah.
got to be like, because you know, elevator pitch, you're in an elevator for 15 seconds. So I'll give
Yeah.
you a great example, a small example. ProEdge branding is for elite college and professional athletes who want to leverage and monetize their brand value outside of the field.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a premier personal branding consultancy that ostracizes specifically concentrating on LinkedIn. Unlike CAA or William Morris Endeavors, their services we provide are tailor made and athletes built by athletes. So, like something like seamless, clear cut, it's got
Yeah.
to be like that. Trey, as we know, like going to the consultant space, like they don't have a minute to hear about it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
that's something to like learn in that aspect. So, like, Jim, I know you're on the investment side. If you want to go first on that aspect, if you kind of want to go into that.
I'm trying to yeah, so for as far as the investment part is so now that my company is up and running and kind of doing its thing, now I'm like just trying to like match my my future like endeavors with other companies and trying to like um collaborate and expand on my aspect of healthcare. So I take care of athletes, all the injury prevention and recovery. So now I want to venture out in things I don't know and understand,
Mhm.
and collaborate and invest in other companies to like broaden the horizon. Because I like learning outside of my realm as opposed to inside because uh, the connections you do make, there's so much more opportunity for growth. They say narrow-minded. My narrow-minded pitch was always like, okay, healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. But once you start investing in like collaborate with like other companies, um, the growth is like crazy as far as the people you connect with, the real relationships you build, and actually the more knowledge you take on because we're so narrow-minded. I think sometimes that investing in other companies makes things a lot greater for the long run.
Got you. Totally understand. Trey and Walt, if you guys want to, Trey, if you want to go first, so I know you've been through this, but definitely like if you want to make it, as Stephanie was saying, like more kind of like clear cut, like when you're going into the different aspect, how would you take? Let's go Trey first. Either of these two.
Okay. Yeah, so my consulting agency, we target large corporations who are in need of um, gaining insight on the behavioral side of whether it be investing, um, technology, or anything else. There, who needs um, my bad, I got caught up on a market category. Yeah, this is for their need of the behavioral side of behavioral understanding of corporate America, and how that relates to the company. The market category is, I would say, mostly CEOs and Fortune 500 companies. One key benefit from our consultancy is that we give insights on the psychological side of businesses, and we help you grow and unlock hidden value within your company, unlike generic consultancy or consulting firms that just focus on one aspect of your business. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Love that, man. That's awesome, man. Cool. And as far as Walt, if you want to get a quick shot at it.
I feel like at the moment there's kind of three things outside of basketball that I'm kind of involved with. I've had my clothing company for the past 5 years that I've done, and then I'm actually partnering with one of my buddies who he had asked me to come on board with him for a construction company that he's been in the process of starting up. That's been pretty much a project throughout the entirety of this year. I'm starting in January, and then also I just recently was added onto the board of advisors for a education technology and financial technology company as well. So I don't know which one you would, I can kind of go for all of them, but is there one that you would like me to focus on more?
No, let's just pick any of them. First of all, that's all three good. If you just any of them, that'll work for us. Just more of the core.
Yeah. I'll actually go with the education and financial tech because that's something that is I just had meetings for earlier today, so it's fresh in my mind. But it's called Electus Global Education, and we have a product that's called the Life